everybody. Hello out there. Welcome to Lead and Laugh. Hello. I hope you're seeing this wherever you are. Maybe you're seeing it from your phone. Maybe you're seeing it from your kids' room because I know they're at home. I know you're at home. We all know you're at home. Most of us, or somebody else's home, but we're all doing what we got to do to stay safe. So again, I'm Kathy Klotz-Guest. I'm the founder of Keeping It Human, and welcome to Lead and Laugh. And I am a little bit about me. I am a speaker, comedian. I help teams use principles of improv and comedy to make their teams better, to be more creative, to get along better, be more functional in business. And with me today, my guest today, I'm so excited, is my friend. She's a fellow speaker and comedian. She's the author of Stutter Interrupted, Nina G. Give it up for Nina G. Yay.
Hey, thank you. Hi, Kathy. Great to be here.
Hey, girl. We're happy to have you. We're going to talk today, and I know people are going to come in and out, and it's Good Friday and whatever. You can watch the video later. And also, two people who do, and I'll repeat this because people kind of come in and out. Ask your questions. I will be able to see your questions. As you have questions, people, feel free to ask them. So the big thing that I wanted to talk to Nina about is, she suggested this idea and I loved it so much. I think it's such an important thing is, how do you talk about an idea, something that is so personal to you, something that is so important, and how do you honor that idea and get it out in the world in a way people will hear? And I thought, that's brilliant. We all need to do that, whether we're speakers, comics, whatever. And it just so happens that with comedy, Nina and I try to use humor to elevate the message. Mm-hmm. So with that, like, Nina, like, how did you start thinking about this and before you sort of got these ideas out in the world?
Yeah, so I'm in my 10th year doing comedy now. I just had my comedy-versary. Yeah, I never thought it would last long. So, and I still love it. I still love it. It is the art form that I have loved my entire life. Yeah. As a teenager, I wanted to be a comic, but I never thought it would be possible because I stutter. And so the dream died. But then I started up again I started the dream up again because I never got up on stage. Mm-hmm. But I got up on stage for the first time when I was 35. After a conference for people who stutter, where I started to really question the ideas that I had about myself and kind of the way that I was living, that it really wasn't, that I wasn't practicing what I preached, that I told people, oh, you can do whatever you want, don't let it hold you back. But this thing of doing comedy, I never engaged in, and the dream died. Woke back up at the 35. And for me, the stand-up that I always loved were, and that I was brought up on, like my mom, when I was a kid, she would keep me home from school a lot because I hated school because I have a learning disability, and I went to Catholic school. So that combination, have fun. So she would keep me home from school, and we'd go to the movies, and I missed all kinds of school. She would have totally been reported to CPS if it was now.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, no, she was great. She, like, once, a couple times, she brought me to see Richard Pryor live at the Sunset Strip or other Richard Pryor stand-up specials when I was like 9 years old. So, like, I was exposed to comedy that meant something and that said something and that was really good as well. Yeah. And my mom's attitude was always like, well, you have to learn this stuff anyway. I'm not gonna not expose you to the world. This is the world. And it was like probably the best drug education I could ever get was Richard Pryor talking about when he was burnt up. Like, really made a mark on me. So I was raised seeing a lot of African-American comedians, like Richard Pryor, like Paul Mooney, like Wanda Sykes, were able to blend the prejudice that they saw in the world along with comedy. And I know as a white person, I was better able to understand their experience and prejudice. And so for me,
Yeah.
I really borrowed that kind of voice for social justice issues, and social justice is now such like a term, but you know, for me it was that at the time, and wanting to do, because I had never seen my experience on TV. I had never seen the experience of a disabled person, especially a woman on TV, especially one who's stuttered. So I wanted to bring that onto the stage, but I also wanted to do my art form, which is comedy. So that, you know, it's a first year. You know this. The first year comics get up on stage. They don't have their voice yet. They
Yeah.
just want to say horrible, awful things that they think make them Lenny Bruce and Louis C.K. and Chris Rock. And
What was Louis C.K. today, though?
Yeah. It's kind of changed.
It's changing. Yeah. A lot more Wanda Sykes, a little less Louis C.K. A lot. Yeah. Yeah.
But that first year, you're developing your voice. And like, I feel like I didn't really have to develop my voice in that way because I came into it with that voice and knowing that I wanted to do that. Then I had to make that funny, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah. I love that. And I love it because, you know, I think I met you. We met on the same stage. I don't know if it was Roosters or there was some place you and I were both on the same stage at. And I just loved the very first time I heard you. I laughed my ass off. And I was like, I love her because, you know, it's so true. If you want to say anything meaningful in the world, you have to bring your truth to it. And you have to bring a very sharp point of view, your lens in the world. That's what makes, you know, it's the difference between, I think, good comedy and great comedy. And I think the very first time I heard you, you just did this really beautiful joke about how people would come up to you because you have dyslexia and a stutter, and people will come up to you and go, you know, talk to you like you're 5 years old. And it was like, oh, good for you. You're doing comedy. And your joke was so hilarious. And I was like, you owned it. You went there. And I was like, I love this woman. I love this woman. You know? Yeah. And here's the funny thing. I can't remember the punchline, but people in the audience, you had them. They were all leaning in because I think in that moment, it just, for me as a comic and a writer, I go, that's it. When everybody can relate, because we all have something that maybe we don't feel included on, we all can relate. And it's, maybe we don't have a stutter, maybe we don't have dyslexia, but maybe we have something else. Maybe it's racial. Maybe we're, you know, in a wheelchair. Maybe we're, you know, our mobility is limited, whatever it is. And like, you just had the whole audience leaning in.
Yeah, no. And like, to me, that's such a powerful tool that I can, you know, because I also teach and I teach college from time to time, and so they have to listen. But people at a dive bar at 10 o'clock on a Saturday, like, to be able to educate them as well, and to that way, to me, is so interesting. And also to represent an experience that oftentimes on TV, it's done so badly.
Yeah.
Oh my, like, you know, it's this stuttering person, like, and then they just break down, and then you never see them again. They are not a person. They are a stutter. And so wanting to have that personal connection person, because the research says that you don't change your attitudes towards somebody if you work with them. And so if I am a and this is Not true of everybody. There's a lot of people who aren't able to change their attitudes. But if there's a power differential, you don't change your attitudes. So if you are working with disabled people, your attitude may not change. But if you have a peer, or if you have a boss or a mentor with a disability, then that does change the attitudes. And my hope in part with comedy was to help change attitudes, whether it's at a college, because I do professional speaking there, or at a dive bar where I can speak on an experience that not everybody's heard.
Yeah, no, that's super powerful. And that to me is, that's when I go, you know what? That's the power of comedy when it's so good. That's the shit that, when you watch like The Daily Show, or you watch, Sam B or whatever, and you see comedy elevated by taking social issues and really, bringing that conversation up a notch to a level of intelligence. I was always trained that, you give comedy, assume the highest intelligence in the room, and you aim for the highest intelligence instead of pandering. And that to me is when comedy is so good that I feel like it's in the service of society. And I get so nerdy about this stuff because that's when I'm like, you know what I mean? Yeah, because like fellow comics that are trying to change the world with their voice, it's such a powerful thing. What kinds of feedback have you gotten from people? Do you ever get people coming up to you afterwards and saying, wow, I never thought of it that way? Or do you get, what kinds of comments do you have to field afterwards?
A broad Kathy.
What do women get? I'm just going to say for audience, people who come in and out, women in comedy get all kinds of, just like, let's just say that very clearly. So there's a baseline there.
Yeah, and so I will tell you one on that side, which is I once at the show, guy comes up to me and he tells me that I stutter because I'm having the wrong kinds of orgasms.
Oh.
And I asked him what kind he meant, and he told me, and I was like, I don't think you stutter through that orifice. Because it went to that place.
Yes. Man.
So there's those kinds of things, but then there's also times when people will come and they'll hug me and they'll say like, oh my God, my dad stuttered and he died a long time ago and I haven't heard a stutter since. And it just touched me so much to hear that voice reflected, and that's very special. And then there's other people where I'm the first person that they've ever met who stutters, and there's this one guy in Austin, Texas, and I had a very lukewarm set. Usually, I would leave, but I was in Texas and I was like, where else am I gonna go? And this guy came afterwards. He was 27 years old. He was trying to talk around his stutter. So he's like, well, I talk like you, because he's stuttered on the word stutter. So he talked around it. And I was like, okay, I know this. Yes. And then I was the first one that he ever met. And then I gave him information about the National Stuttering Association, and they have a conference every year. And just the power of the community is it's really impacted me. And so I try to spread that message as well.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's really powerful. Folks, if you're tuning in, and I know people come in and out, if you got questions for Nina, or just, me in general, just go ahead and type. So every once in a while I'm looking down. I am not ignoring you. I am looking to see if there's questions. So I have to monitor to make sure that we don't miss the questions. So definitely, if you have a question for Nina, give us a shout out. Just type, and that, like, you're with your little tiny hands, type a question, and we'll get to it here. It kind of came. It's interesting because I think you wrote about this, and Joe Biden has a stutter, And I think, in the debate, we saw it in the debate. And I think a lot was made of it. And I didn't think much about it because I have friends with stutters, and it just doesn't, a lot of smart people have it. And so he's managed it over his life. And it's a little blip. And, I've seen it before and it was no big deal, but it was amazing to me, that the kind of the political voices kind of got a little bit mean about it. And I think, they wanted to layer his age and all this other stuff on top of it. And I thought, well, maybe they've never met anybody with a stutter. So you had some point of view about that. You want to share that with us?
Oh yeah, no, I'm so glad you asked that. So much like that guy who I just talked about, from who's talking around his words, Joe Biden has done that. That is called covert stuttering, where I do more overt, where I also have dyslexia. So if I come up with one word, I could substitute it for maybe one other word, but people who don't have dyslexia may have a wider vocabulary to pick from. I'm going to have two words, and one of them is probably going to be inappropriate. So now I'm just going to stutter on this. So you can appreciate that. And that is why Biden, when he talks about Obama, he'll probably say it like that.
Yeah.
And he says, it's my boss, where he's talking around it. And so I personally think that he has managed very well, but I think in the world of politics now and how people talk about things, where, like in the past, you could say malarkey, and people are like, yeah, malarkey. And now people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so I think it's his dialogue and his practice narrative has changed. And his narrative in the past has always been, I've overcome my stutter. Yeah. And it's like, it's like George Washington and the cherry tree of like the what was it, like, never tell a lie thing. Yeah. Like, I think this is it's his overcoming. It's his hero's journey. But everybody who stutters knows when he says my boss, he's trying to a word. And that's why I personally am like, I mean, Kathy, if you are on a roast and someone's going to get you for something, what do you do to that person before they can get to your thing?
Yeah, well, you do a preemptive strike, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And that Trump of his speech. So if he just came at it like really straight on, just like we in a roast, it'd be so much better.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I agree, and I noticed that, and I thought about it. Then I saw your post because I was thinking about it, but I also know people who stutter. It's not very it wasn't surprising to me, and I didn't really think twice about it. I mean, and it's interesting because once you wrote that, I hadn't quite thought about it that way. And I thought, yeah, you're right. It's like you do a preemptive strike. That's what I would do. And you say, look, I have this thing, and you lean into it and you take away the steam so that it doesn't become, especially in the game we're in, where it becomes he's just old and he can't remember. And it's like, no, I mean, he's older, but he's a pretty sharp guy. And so, you just kind of own it. And with everything that, any politician needs to do, or any of us, is that we are humanized by the very things that make us different. And if I was him, I would have just leaned the hell into it. So when you wrote that, I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Makes total sense. Yeah. See, he needs you advising him.
Yeah. And
yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess. Well, now you should tag him online.
Okay.
You should tag him on Twitter.
You,
well, you know what? Or you know
it's
what?
breaking up.
We can.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit, and that's okay. That's okay. We'll give it a minute of latency here. Sometimes there's yeah. That's okay. That's okay. No worries. No big deal. Improvisers, we dance. It's no big deal. But yeah, I mean, have you thought about, I'm curious, and maybe the answer is already yes. Did you, because I saw it on Facebook, did you post that article on Twitter and tag him? I'm curious.
Did I post?
Oh. Did you post that article on Twitter and tag him and tag Joe Biden?
I don't remember. It was a while back, but I'm pretty sure I did. I think that I tweeted it out. I don't know if anybody in his campaign, but I definitely hope they do, so that we can have isn't Trump making fun of him for being a stutterer. Up too much energy for me to have to hear that and deal with that, and then have to fight that, and then have to educate people about that, and then go to family parties where I have to defend somebody. Can we just, get past that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's a larger lesson that anybody can learn from, regardless of what your thing is. Again, lean into it. Like, I'd be the first. I know who I am. Like, I'm a harried mom. I'm a potty mouth. Oh yeah, so what? Like, I will own, but that's owning your voice. And I think that everything that makes you a very good speaker, everything that makes you a really good relatable person, politician, anything that makes you a really great comic is taking those things that make you different and owning those things. So for people who watch this later, don't look at those things as, you can't bring them up. Everybody's thinking it. And comedy is all about going into the elephant, naming the elephant in the room, just going there, and owning it in the badass way that you can own it, just like Nina's talking about with stuttering. So whatever your thing is, right? So, all right.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the latency. Yeah. So what has been the most powerful thing? Okay.
I'm going to reboot just this and
okay.
To make.
Okay. All right. She'll be back. I'll dance here. I'll talk for a little bit. And that's okay. It happens. No big deal. Nina's going to be back. She's refreshing. She's on her phone. So it's not the end of the world. She'll be back. And as soon as she gets back, we will add her back. So it's no big deal. No big deal. It's no big deal. There she is. No big deal.
Better?
We just, yeah, you're back. No, you're totally good. So I'll fill aired. No big deal. It's so funny. I mean, when you do improv, you're used to just kind of dancing. We'll make it work. What's one of the biggest things that, in 10 years in comedy for you, what's one of the biggest things that you wish you knew when you started? Tell your 10-year-old self 10 years ago.
Yeah. What would I want? I think that I wasn't secure in my voice. I think I was really afraid to tell people what I was doing. And I think a lot of times people were giving me opportunities because I was one of the first stuttering comics that they saw, and or some more prominent ones came. And I was like, I'm not ready yet. I'm so and what I'm glad also that I took time to develop my voice, but I didn't jump in with I didn't jump in with both feet. And I wish that I would have sold myself more as a comic that way.
Yeah.
But that was, but you know, otherwise I've been pretty happy with it because it's my work ethic is really good, and that came through when I started comedy. So
yeah, you know, it's interesting, and it's listen to you. I so agree, and I think this is true of everything. Like we were saying earlier, but especially when I started comedy, it's so true because I can remember just telling jokes, but they were disconnected jokes because I didn't have my voice. You don't know, and I remember somebody saying to me, "You need to find your persona," and I remember saying to her, "I don't know what that is yet," and I remember getting really hung up on, oh, I have to have a persona. I have to have a persona. And what I think I would tell my younger self, if I could, I would say it will come. Keep doing it and it will come. But you can't force it. I think it comes with more experience and the kinds of jokes you write, your lens in the world, you know, whether you're a mom, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a stutterer, whether you're, I don't know, whatever you are, it will come. But you know, give it time, give it, and it will get better. But it's the same thing for anything, whether it's writing, whether it's, you know, anything, you know, it will happen. But that voice is really important.
yeah, and you even found during the quarantine doing like kind of transitioning to I've had to kind of like kind of to gauge what I'm doing and who I am online, because like this is cool, I can do this, but doing comedy without an audience for me is like the audience kind of like 75 percent of why I want to do comedy, and not having that just feels so artificial that I've had to I've had to recalibrate.
How have you done that? And I'm curious about that because this age of COVID is testing everybody's creativity. And I'm with you. I mean, it's very weird not having a feedback loop, not having an audience to laugh at and to hear the laughter. It's definitely different. I'm with you. And I did a Zoom thing the other day and I was like, that was weird. And I do Zoom all the time, but not for comedy. But this is a whole new world. So how are you leaning into that? And what are you doing differently to accommodate that?
So for me, it's two things. One is, yeah, since I am a big comedy nerd, I don't know if you can see me, but I have all my comedy albums hanging up, from Albert Brooks and Dick Gregory, Mort Saul,
Oh, wow.
Edith Ann by Lily Tomlin. Gilda is somewhere, I forget where. So I've, you know, read all kinds of books and stuff. And what I've read when on the Tonight Show or something, that they tell them that you're not performing to the people in the audience, you're performing to the people at home. And so you have to picture them. And so you are performing to the camera. And so trying to imagine that, but for, you know, 3 people on Zoom or something, you know, like it's silly. And so there's that piece. The second one is trying to reimagine how to kind of, you know, it's like always on Carson, I'm old, so that's who I'm going to reference right now, that he had the comic come out and then he had them panel, and paneling was where he related to the comic. Of course, they were always men, but we're not going to go there right now, Kathy. But but that was that I was thinking about was how can we create that interaction between comics. And so I've had let's see, I've done my second or third show on Zoom which I host it in Comedians Con, and they do a show and tell. And share an object is dear to them. They're in their house, crap they could use. And then the other comment, some questions. And so I want it to be authentic, and I try to do it with people that are friends so that they can make fun of each other and it's okay. And they know where to go with each other. And to me, it's a thing that I miss most about not doing comedy now is the relationship with the audience and the relationship with other comics. And that is my substitute right now. And this is substitute as well.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I love talking, and I love talking to comics because, I mean, as a comic, myself and an improviser, I miss the audience too. I tried to explain to people, if you speak a lot, people who watching this who are speakers will relate, because even if it's not comedy, having that feedback from the audience, that feedback loop is so important to reading the room and calibrating and know what's hitting and know what's not. And like, I need that to be able to in real time, adapt. And so I am with you. It's very, very different. And I do miss having the camaraderie that comes with comics, just even off stage talking and bantering. And then, crowd work, the idea of like crowd work where I'll do that on stage, but it's very different in Zoom because you can't see anybody. and like, except for other comics or, you don't know people. If there are people on the Zoom that you can see and you don't know, it's different. It's a different kind of thing. So, joke writing in a Zoom world is like anything, is a different layer of creativity, right? And we're all having to sort of maybe think differently, not just in the way the material, like, I'm COVIDed out and Zoomed out, but just in the way that we write jokes. Yeah.
Well, and also to me, like every first year comic or like the first day comic, they get on stage and they're like, oh, I have like a half hour. It's like, no, you have 5 minutes, if that. And so it's going to be so funny when we come out as comics. They're going to think that their HBO or their Netflix special is done and they're ready. No, they got like 5 minutes, if that. So it's going to be hilarious to watch that progress.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. And it's interesting because you're right. Because when you develop material and like delivering it this way, I don't know that you're getting the full experience because you're doing it for eventually doing it in person. And so like I did one last week and I was like, well, that was interesting, but I couldn't really get a read on whether or not this would work in person in the same way. And I was like, don't know. And comics are the worst audience anyway, if it's other comics, because
ever.
Yeah. We all know. I mean, comics and the other comics are like the worst, because you're either going to get your friends or you're going to get your friends harassing you. So it's either way, you're not going to get the full thing. But it's interesting. It is interesting. How are you? Are you writing a lot these days? Given shelter in place, are you finding your writing is you've got a different take on it, or?
You know what? You broke up a little on that one. Can you say it again, maybe?
Sure. Are you doing
reboot myself?
Don't reboot just yet. If we need to, you can. Are you doing a lot of writing right now?
Am I doing writing right now?
A lot of writing, yeah.
I am not. I think like you're right now, and so like I'm stocking up on peanut butter. Like it's like, how are you supposed to write a joke when you're worried about peanut butter? So
who loves peanut butter. on a phone, everybody, don't worry about it. So sometimes that happens. So when people are back, we'll add her back. But yeah, no, one of the interesting part about writing comedy when you know, in this kind of environment, everybody's lens seems to be the same. They're all struggling with the same thing. So it's very interesting. Um, Given that we're sheltered in place, it's it's really hard to, I think, write a lot of jokes that are COVID related and other things because the meanings are very similar and everybody's jokes again from back in the biological days where you're writing about the same meanings and because you're all experiencing the same thing. So you're looking for the little in between lenses and where you can find a little opening. So, for example, in a COVID world, what is a voice that you can add? Jane is back. We're going to try to add her. She's been a trooper. She's been a super trooper, and we're thanks for coming back.
Sure. Sorry about that, but you're coming in great now.
Don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. It's phones are challenging, everybody. I mean, it's video takes a lot of bandwidth, and it's okay. It's all good because it's cool, and we're just having an informal chat, so it's all good. I was sort of filling in while you were coming back, and I was just talking to the audience a little bit about. For me, one of the challenges about writing right now is that it's very meme driven and we're all experiencing the same things. So the challenge is like, well, okay, I'm sheltered in place. Everybody else is sheltered in place. The only difference might be is through a voice of like also being a mom and trying to homeschool and not day drink because that's frowned on. So there's you're looking for lenses that are because everyone's got COVID jokes and they tend to be the same, but that's also an exercise in creativity for us to find our little unique lens on those generic things.
Yeah, and I'm a very big Emo Phillips fan. I was 13 years old. I wrote him a fan letter back in like 1987, and he wrote back a autographed picture in my album. Actually, it's the stand is here. It is underneath this. But I have, gone to see him so many times. And actually the last show I saw was him at the Sacramento Punchline, which I'm so glad that I risked my life to go see him. But I had asked him once, I was like, do you think that audiences now, because like you watch his specials from the 1980s, the people don't look weird. He was so weird, but the audience looked so normal. And I was like, these normal people would not be into him now. And so what is that? And I asked him if he's seen a change in the audiences, like, are they less smart now, or how, what is that? And he said that when he started comedy, that everybody got their information from the same place, so that your jumping off point was a commonality that everybody shared. But now people have different forms of getting information, so they don't have the same jumping off point. And so when you say something, you have to give the background on it. So you have to explain it. And so what I'm wondering about COVID is a couple of things and how it might impact comedy. One is, does it give everybody an equal footing? Because rich, poor, middle class, men, women, other than people that are homeless, which that is something that our culture has to work out, that everybody's going through this same experience. And we've never gone through the same experience for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so what impact will that have on how we understand this experience? Because there's very few times when a trauma happens to a whole country.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting what this is, and then the perspective we can take with that.
Yeah, and that's so true. I mean, we're all feeling it differently and yet together. And so I can't, you're right, because I don't think, while we all went through, the mortgage crisis, some people didn't feel it the same way. The wealthy didn't. 9/11 we went through together, but obviously some communities felt the impact, I think, more profoundly. So you're right. Like, of our generation, this is something that we're all going through together. And could that be an interesting kind of angle to take? That's an interesting kind of thing to explore for comedy, and to deepen that point of view. And I'm curious for you, when you, this, for people watching who will watch this later, when you sit down to write something new, where do you start from? So it might give people an insight into to really elevating their message too. Where do you start from?
How to write something and to elevate the message. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. What's your personal process for starting with that?
I think for me, I don't sit down and write. It doesn't happen. What I do is I just kind of go along, and when something really pisses me off and it sticks with me, then I'm like, oh, I have to do something about this. Complaining about that thing to best friend. My best friend lives like right there. So she's right next door. And it's been so great that I could go outside and stay 6 feet away from her, but we could still talk hella shit. And so it's been wonderful. And like, that is where the conversation comes from.
Yeah.
And that is where I am able to find those things that anger me, that piss me off. And to me, all my jokes that I do, I have one on communion right now, that gluten-free communion is now being offered. That enrages me as somebody who is Catholic, who went to Catholic school, and the teachers were like, you have dyslexia and stuttering, you should be in public school. Get the hell out of our school. And I'm like, oh, but now gluten-free communion the thing? Like, that enrages me. And so I have 3 minutes on that. But everything that I talk about, I care. Jokes and it could work, but I don't care about it.
Yeah. That, I love that we're talking about this, because I think this is something that every writer, whether it's comedy or not, every writer needs to hear. And I'm gonna underscore what Nina said. So important. Like, start with the things that matter, the things that you have a voice on. Like, yeah, I'm with you. The thing that made the difference when I started comedy, between really good comedy and when I was my best and when I was okay, was really choosing the topics and the things that pissed me off or made me happy or made me like, I had a very, very strong, undeniable opinion on. And that's where I started.
Sorry, I started to mess with everything. I have my computer here. I was trying to get you on that because I thought that would go well. And then it was me talking. Like, it's so lagged.
That's okay. You know what? This is what shelter in place is. We're all making adjustments. There's no right, there's no wrong. We're imperfect, and that's perfect and human, and that's totally cool. No, it's totally okay.
Okay, so today I was on a phone call, a Zoom thing for work, and of course I stutter, and of course it's my internet sucks, as we all see. I think I was trying to yesterday, but they didn't show. This wouldn't just love me, but I'm on this Zoom call and I get the hiccups. My internet's bad, and stuttered in the hiccups, interrupted my stutter, and so it was all a thing. Like, this has been not the greatest thing for someone who has a speech impairment, but I really appreciate the opportunity.
But you're so memorable and you have such great ideas. And it's like who cares? I think this is what I love about this time that we're in, is that it is the perfect time to be imperfect. We're just all trying to survive. And who gives a shit? And I think what I think for me this time is that everything we thought was important, I think it's really not that important given where we're at. And I think I'd like to think that it's elevated humanity in the sense of just being aware of what really matters. And we're in such an age of experimentation that I really think that, all right, so what? Zoom calls are going to hit snags. Who cares? Is that really what matters? And the things that we got so wrapped up 2 months ago about, we're like, so what? We'll just restart the Zoom call. It's not even a big deal anymore, you know? So
I have found I have a whole new wardrobe now, because there's a bunch of clothes, like you can't see the bottom of this, but it does not fit well. Like, I'm wearing Spanx with talking. I wore Spanx for this. So, but this has been in my closet because it doesn't fit me. Like, look at this. It's like leopard print. So
Ooh.
I have just a bunch of clothes that I cannot wear, but I can wear from here to here. So I'm happy about that.
Can you imagine a Zoom fashion show with models, but you're only like showing them from run the Zoom walk, and then you're just like walking the Zoom walk, and it's like, who gives a rat's ass? You could be wearing nothing down there, right? And no one's gonna know, but like that would just be hilarious. Like, it's like that's what I love about the time that we're in.
I think we need to have that.
I am down for that. If you want to do that, we should totally set something like that up. We can make it a fashion thing, like whatever your like what they call a business mullet. They're calling it the business mullet, which makes me laugh, right? So like it's whatever like you want to do up here, and then like total shit down here. So just bring your business mullet wardrobe. We could do a whole fashion walk on that. It'd be so funny.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about that, because that could be fun.
Yeah, no, let's do that. I think that would be phenomenal. That would just be great.
I already know the dress that I want to wear, along with my grandmother's mink fur that you can't wear outside anymore because you'll get paint on you.
But you know what? Anything goes in shelter in place, right? It's like that's cool. High fashion, shelter in place, haute couture. Like I think that's a thing. We can make that a thing. So we will definitely talk about that. So as we kind of wind up, and don't worry about it, we'll edit this and all that good stuff. What's something you would leave for people who, because you've been doing this 10 years, you know who you are, you have an established point of view, Nina. What's something that you would leave, a piece of advice for people who are still early in finding their voice?
So you ask what advice I have for people who are still developing their voice?
Yeah, what's one piece of advice you'd leave them with?
Okay. I think that you have to be true to yourself in every aspect of your art form. I think people right now, or like pre-COVID, I think there's post-COVID, I think people kind of sell themselves out because they think that that's what's going to work on stage. That's what's going to get you onto TV, and it does. It totally works. So this is not great advice. It's my TV credits are Good Day. Maybe taking my advice is not good advice, but in terms of feelings about comedy, I think that to be true to who you are, to know who you, and to also know that who you are is going to change and develop. And I think right now, hard on comics because they may do a misstep. And in the past, what we've seen artists kind of, go on a journey. I hope that we can allow people to go on that journey with some forgiveness for when they do mess up, because pre-COVID, we haven't been very kind to people who mess up, and I'm one of the big culprits of that. Like, I would get all over someone, but to really think about genuine of how people go through a process and they grow, and we want to see that growth instead of shaming them into that may not be where they are.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think that's such an important point you made, because part of finding your voice means growing your voice and trying things on. And you won't know if it fits or not until you try it. And then you realize, okay, that sounded like inauthentic. And you won't know that until you do it. And there's been plenty of times I've written jokes and I'm like, nah, that didn't sound like me. It didn't match my other jokes and I got to throw it out. And so be patient with yourself. I love what you're saying. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself some space to experiment and to know that you're going to try on different things. But if you stay true to really the thing that makes you different and who you are, you're going to be more successful. I think you're right. And I'm seeing even in the speaker thing, forget comedy, even in the speaker realm, everyone's like, all of a sudden they're like a working from home expert. And I'm like, you have never said shit about working from home, and now you're a working from home expert. And I think we're seeing people trying to pivot. Yeah, everyone's like, you're like, no. So I think we're all trying to pivot and we're all trying to figure it out. So we're all adapting, which we should. But if we're going to adapt, we still have to maintain the truth of who we are as we adapt. So yeah, I'm never going to be a work from home expert. I'm never going to be a team building with Zoom expert. I'm never going to be a homeschooling expert. Some might say I'm not even a parental expert, but it's like, you got to be who you're going to be. And, I think that's a really great piece of advice. So go experiment, try different things on, like Nina says. Don't shame yourself or anybody else. Just give yourself some space to experiment. Well said. Very good advice. Nina, where do you want to send people? Where would you like to send people to learn more about you and your fabulous comedy and your book and all that stuff?
So my website is median.com. You can get this somewhere. You can get it at Target. Like when you're ordering from it or from Amazon, and you need 12 to get your free shipping. This is the ideal way to do that. So keep that in mind. It's a good side for people who are on an airplane. So in one night, you can finish it. Okay. So that's my pitch on that. Also, right now, the accommodations for kids is within the home. So this may not be totally applicable, but this is my book, Once Upon an Accommodation, Learning Dibs. And it's for kids. The illustrator is Mean Dan, and he is a local comic. A story about a kid who was diagnosed with a learning disability, and he finds out what that means to to him, and it also helps kids to develop around their disabilities and how to advocate. And that's only on Area, but that's it for now. So, and
that's awesome. And I will put the
and also they can always
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I will put the links here, everybody. Don't worry. I'll make sure the links get here. It's Stutter Interrupted is one of her books. The other book is Once Upon an Accommodation, with some very cool graphics from a local comic that I also happen to know, Mean Dave. That's awesome. Shout out for Mean Dave. Awesome, awesome. What a great book too. Especially, you know, if you have a child or know a child with a learning disability and you're having to accommodate, we all need to adjust. We all need to make that adjustment so that that child has the best chance of success. I think that's awesome. And if you want to go to her website, you can go to ninagcomedian.com. Do I have that right? Look at there. There we go. And if you were interested, and we'll make sure the links are here for everybody. I'll put them on the Facebook page. If you're interested in me, everybody, you can go to keepingithuman.com. That's my business. You can find my book, Stop Boring Me. See right here, isn't it? In my little cubby. And my book ad cubby right here conveniently. You can get Stop Boring Me on Amazon.com. And I'm also on all the socials at Kathy Klotz-Guest, and Nina is also there at Nina G Comedian. So thanks, Nina G, baby. Thank you, my friend, for joining us.
You said bye.
I know. It's like the latency. It's like, no, wait, she's bowing. No, wait, no. Happy Easter, everybody.